Greetings from Las Vegas. It's your girl, but in the Crucible, and our little show TitTalks here in Vegas. Hope you're well. It is Friday. I don't know if Friday means anything to you anymore. But just because people have all kinds of schedules, or maybe you only have to work 4 days a week. Maybe you're your own boss. Maybe so that means you work every day. Or you just have some kind of like rotating schedule or whatever. But the point is, anyway, it's Friday, so you know, if it is the weekend for you, then hey. Today we're going to tell some story times related to some the epidemic of, we're gonna call them just evil old ladies, right? There's like a bunch of evil old ladies evil old lady, okay, evil is everywhere, and of course it's not gender exclusive, but I just noticed I was racking up, meeting a few like Cruella de Vil's that lived out here in Vegas, and the stories are, I guess, based on, depending on your perspective, kind of funny, but anyway, the first batch of old ladies that I met in Vegas that I was like, what is going on in this town, was this group of old ladies. I'm not going to say, I don't even know if their thing is still popping. They might have moved on to something else. But they were running like this pet adoption kind of thing. And what they were doing is they had a cute little website, and they were posted up at one of those like major chain pet stores. They will be there every like Saturday or something, selling baked goods, and you could donate, baked goods, and they had like a little list of like what you could do, or you could contribute, a monetary donation towards their cause. And they had a bunch of pets, or random animals that they will feature on their website, and then you could adopt. Well, first of all, their adoption fee, one of them had a nonprofit, and that's why they were allowed to do it, I guess, however they did it. And then they were charging people these adoption fees, and then you could rescue one of the featured animals that they had on the site. Okay, just seems like it's not a big deal. So I was like, wow. I noticed that they offered like a potential, you could volunteer. I didn't need any community service or anything, but I just, I love animals, and I was still new to Vegas, and I was trying to figure out ways to connect to the animal community. So I felt like, oh, here's this local group, and it's women, and it just kind of was in my lane. Well, I meet these old ladies, and they're kind of rude. It might have been a color issue, because they were all these older white ladies. So I don't know if like maybe I was just like barely making the cut of like who they would tolerate to be around. But they did not seem very friendly at all from the gate. And then like, so people, but then I noticed like, but they were kind of like, I don't want to say they were snotty, but they were maybe kind of entitled. Like, people were coming, some woman came and like brought them some baked goods, and was like, oh, she's like all excited to be part of the cause, and the woman kind of like, took them as though like, yeah, you better, kind of, like, they just, to me, they were not friendly. And so then I found out that they were charging people upwards of like $250 to like $500, for these pet adoption fees. And then finding out that they pretty much like, okay, how it was working is that they were foddering in strays from off the street. Then they will go get the pet, they will clean the animal up and go get the shots, and the shots and the spay and the neuter for the low. They have the nonprofit license, and then I guess like they had it in good with this one um, veterinary facility that I guess like they pretty much had it worked out between them and this facility, and kind of paying this flat rate, as I understood, allegedly, as I understood that they kind of like had worked something out because they were coming regularly, so they had it all worked out for a much lower price, and then advertising these animals on the website to sell them for upwards of 250, 300, 350. Like, to me, these crazy outrageous prices, knowing that they typically paid anywhere from 50 to maybe 150 for taking this animal to get spayed, neutered, and the shots. So for me personally, I wasn't feeling that. I feel like that's a huge scam. This was kind of their racket. They were charging people, kind of really hitting them over the head and acting like they were these Mother Teresa types. And I just, personally, I wasn't feeling it. So, another old lady that I met, her husband had a stroke, and like he couldn't move on his own most of the time, mostly, and if he could move, it was like really slow. He couldn't talk anymore. He could I don't want to say grunt because that sounds rude, but he kind of couldn't really like make clear sentences, and so the point is he needed around the clock care. And they're both older, like in their 70s and 80s. I think he was in his 80s, 70s, 70s or 80s. But they had gotten married later on in life, actually like only a few years before. And I guess, the way they met, he kind of really courted her and promised to take care of her and this and that. And then, she found out that his daughter still had financial power over his finances. And she was battling with her, because she felt like, well, I'm the wife, so I should have control of the finances, and he promised to take care of me, and blah blah blah. So that was kind of a battle because his daughter was living the life, not just off of daddy, but he wanted her to enjoy. And he had the stroke, unfortunately, before they could have like a clear decision on that, because I think he was kind of like stalling with the wife, and then the daughter would be able to chat him up, to remind him, hey, who is she? She's coming in so late in the game. I'm your daughter, blah, blah, blah. I never actually heard these words, but, this is the picture that, is being painted here. So, and meanwhile, the husband cannot defend himself either way any longer because he had the stroke. So he needs round the clock care, and we were visiting with them just kind of as a friend to help out, and the wife was starting to do things like cancel the morning shift nurse, or just like pureeing food and like over microwaving it, and he couldn't really he had to be fed. He couldn't feed himself really. So he had to be fed, and then, it had to be soft food. He loved like pancakes and stuff like that. So, I mean, this man already, like, imagine being trapped inside your body and you're kind of still there, but you can't communicate effectively. You can't, you don't have the dignity of going to the bathroom on your own. And he's an older, man of color. So, it's just like those little things of dignity are already like, you have no choice. And then on top of, so just, I feel like just let people have whatever little things that make them happy. So this, he liked pancakes or whatever, but she would go out of her way to like ruin it for him. You know what I mean? So it started, like, I started noticing little petty things like that. And then, one morning she had canceled the morning nurse, and so when we came in, he had been laying in his own urine for like several hours. And imagine, there was nothing he could do. He couldn't call for help. He couldn't get up. He just had to lay there in it. And she was like, not, she was like, oh, she would say things like, oh, I know he's been, I know he talked to his daughter before he had the stroke, and that they're conspiring against me. I'm not going to have anything. I'll be on the street. What's going to happen to me? Blah, blah, blah. So basically, like, she was making him pay for it. And then, she would want to, like, tell me all of these, like, crazy stories. And, you're just, for the position I was in, I'm just trying to, be polite, and it's not really a situation where you can just blatantly call injustice. And coming from me, it would just still be a case of she said, and I don't think that I would be held credible to tell. I did speak to the person that was like our mutual, the reason that I knew them in the first place, our mutual friend. And I told her, I tried to tell her in a diplomatic way to say, I think, something's going on. It just seems like she's going out of her way to make him miserable. And I'm just, I'm really actually concerned for him. So I did say something, but it's not like I went in the bathroom, and was like, hello, police, this lady is crazy and she's trying to kill her husband and blah, blah. I didn't take it to that length. But, there were things that were going on that obviously she's trying to make his life hell. And even if you watch my other videos, I'm not like feeling more sorry for him. I don't have any additional sympathy for him as a male. I just feel like it's cruelty, is something that, he can't even defend himself. I can't confirm. I wasn't there. I don't know that he like beat her or whatever, but just coming in on the tail end, this man is already debilitated, literally. To get pleasure out of seeing him lay in his urine, to see him in pain, to ruin his meals, which is like the last way he can like have any sort of like external happiness. And he can't even decide, he can't even get to choose what he's going to eat. It's just like whether or not he does eat it, because he cannot even really articulate what he might want to eat that day. So, to me, they had only been married a few years. Like I said, they got married later on in life. So, they both already had families and come and gone and whatever. They were older. They were planning to live out their days. But then he basically, crapped out first, and she was like, well, who's going to take care of me? And then she started kind of torturing him. And I just, I didn't think it was right. Well, when I ended up telling my friend, then a few days later, he ended up in the hospital. Like, she kept trying to, if things got too calm and he started to do well, then suddenly she would want to go to the ER, the emergency room, and have this whole, like, drawn out thing or whatever. Well, they went to the emergency room again, and he finally passed away. And I truly think that it was because he didn't want to have to, like, there just wasn't anything keeping him there anymore, and she was going to devote herself to making him suffer. So he finally just tapped out of the game. I'm trying to tell you, that's really what I think happened. So I don't know that he had any potential whatsoever to recover, but she definitely was trying to, like, I don't know I don't know if she was actually really trying to kill him, because the problem, part of her problem, her dilemma was that she wasn't on the will, and everything was going to the daughter, as I understood, or however he had it before her. So she was not entitled to anything. And then, he had verbally, I guess, promised her, like kind of this Aladdin song style way for them to retire, that he's gonna show her the world, you know, they were going to ride around on, you know, the geriatric version of a magic carpet, which we all know must be a cruise line. And I think, you know, she just thought she was going to party it up on all inclusive, you know, shrimp cocktail and mimosas, which cool. I'm not mad at you for wanting that life, but I guess she didn't consider that he might have a stroke and didn't update the will, and she was going to be out on her tail if that was her only ticket plan to get that cruise line life. You know what I mean? So I felt so bad for the husband that I was almost relieved. Like, I'm not saying, yeah, he's dead. I'm saying, you know what? There wasn't anything else for it. He couldn't talk anymore. He couldn't walk anymore. She was going to make his life, you know, worse. You know, make sure he's in pain anytime that she can, you know, and just be petty and kind of go on and on like if there wasn't anything else left. And everything was allocated to the daughter. And there wasn't any way for him to, as I understood, he could not legally, you know, consent to any legal matters anymore. So, you know, what else is kind of holding him there? And I just felt like at least he, based on what I believe, at least he would not be suffering in this lifetime anymore. And your girl had a chance to chant for him before he passed on. And, you know, I can consider him in my prayers when I chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, you know, for those who have passed away. So I'm really rooting for him to be happy in his new life, you know, hopefully. So as for the lady, I honestly don't know what happened to her. I chant for her happiness too, though, because if she wasn't suffering, she would not have felt like she needed to do things like that. And, you know, like, it's just, I try to keep in mind, you know, we do things out of desperation. I'm sure the idea of her being on the street was like terrifying at 70 something years old. Who wants to think about that? And if she didn't have another plan, or they never got to solidify the plan that he promised her, you know, I can understand her being upset. At the same time, you know, she was like going out of her way to torture him. So chanting for both of them to be victorious, because even like her suffering isn't going to solve anything, you know what I mean, yeah, other than to push her in the right direction. We're not talking about productive suffering, poison into medicine, but I'm saying as far as like, I don't wish for her to be in the street or anything, because it's, you know, who knows what she would do out of desperation at that point, you know. So the last story I'm going to tell is about this woman. She was having a hard time. This woman unfortunately fell in love with somebody who was not in love with her in the conventional, I guess, romantic sense. Like, he had love for her, but he was not in love with her. I don't know that he could have been in love with anybody, but you know, sometimes just when we're in love with someone, you know, you just feel like if you do enough, this person will realize that they were always in love with you, or I don't know. So she got this, he was kind of a gigolo, more or less. He was a player, but he took things from women, you know. Women, he had that kind of thing that just, he attracted women that wanted to take care of him, you know, in exchange for playing house, basically being a boyfriend or whatever. But, you know, these people felt like breadcrumbing him along, you know, was that these monetary things were a contract that he, you know, kind of owed them time, or he was eventually going to have to settle down with them. So he had a trail of haters. He had a bunch of people that were happy to see him burn, because they felt like he did them dirty, because he would get so much out of them, and then still be able to walk away from the situation, or still be out in the street. And these people would feel like, you know, their efforts should conclude some reward of a relationship with him. When to me, it's like, if it's clear that he doesn't like spending time with you, or it's clear that he, right, like, used you, why would you, these women's solution were to try to hold him tighter instead of just, you know, cutting their losses and saying, you used me, or even going back to get, like, I guess whatever he got out of them. But no, these women's big idea was to try, you know, play little games to get him to, I sound so pro men in this episode. I'm so proud of myself. um JK, don't come for me. Anyway, these women were doing all kinds of bitter, spiteful things to make him spend time with them. Like, it wasn't enough that it was obvious that he was just a selfish person. That, right, like, if you were willing to do for him, or you served some kind of purpose in his life, or, you know, he even enjoyed spending time with you at that moment, that didn't signify any kind of commitment or monogamy or loyalty or anything beyond his self-preservation, you know. So that was his flow. Granted, it's not like he stated all that up front, but it was kind of obvious about his personality to me. And I was kind of like his little sister, like his Gidget. I don't know. If you watch the original Bonnie and Clyde, we were a lot like that. In right down to the little questionableness of Clyde. If you saw the original, you know what I'm talking about. Right down to me, that was the focus of, well, a focus point of Bonnie and Clyde. Not like when people say Bonnie and Clyde about their relationship, I always kind of like think to myself, did you ever watch the original Bonnie and Clyde? Because what I got from the movie was his battle with his own sexuality. They weren't just this like down ass super in love couple. That was the premise, is like, you know, she was, well, granted they didn't give her a very enlightened role, but his role as far as like his sexuality and that, like, for the time, I feel like they really went there with somebody like, well, I guess I should research it more before trying to act like I know what I'm talking about, because I'm like, I'll take it a step further. Like, was that the vintage version of someone struggling with, like, even being asexual or bisexual, where, you know, like, to me there were all these extra layers beyond just, oh yeah, we're in love and we're robbing banks, you know. So I always think about that when people are like, yeah, you know, we're Bonnie and Clyde, da, da, da. But we were like the legit context of Bonnie and Clyde, in that, you know, we had this weird tension, but we never acted on it, and he was struggling with his own, you know, sexuality, where I don't know if he preferred objects or men or women or all of the above, or, you know, he didn't want to have to choose, you know, he just liked whatever rubbed him the right way, you know, which, no shade if that's how you are, but unfortunately he was destroying lives of people. Well, they were putting themselves in a position to give him the power to destroy their life, and he wasn't feeling any sort of way to do so. And then, you know, right, like he would activate the spite and the scorn and just like the hellfire and brimstone and like everything. He would bring that out of these women. He would make them crazy. And I don't know if it was the pipe. The D, you know. I don't know if his sexual vibe was just that strong that it was just knocking them all out of tune and out of frequency, and it was making them crazy, because that was pretty much all he had to offer. He could barely offer that, like, because he wasn't a giver all the way, you know. But he did allow these women to kind of, like, I guess they felt comfortable to, like, just really open themselves to him sexually and be these, like, ravenous, you know, women. And he did allow for, he gave them, like, whatever permission they felt like they needed in their minds to be like that. And it was doing it for them. It was like asking and answering all kinds of questions. Like, he was doing that just with his D. So, you know, he was kind of making them crazy, and he ended up, this woman had it really bad for him like 30 years ago when they met a really long time ago. And I've mentioned them in other stories, here and there, but we're focusing on like the evil in this person, in that she I guess realized that who he was, or that she couldn't have him in the way of like just utterly in love the way she was with him. So she proceeded to resort to magic and all kinds of hexing and love roots and stuff like that, and did what he believed, or when we what am I trying to say? We cooked up the conspiracy theory that they kind of worked in the same field, and this person went to lengths to make sure that um, he got he was asked to resign from his job, and that was like his life. Like, he loved what he did. He had a real passion for what he did. He was really good at it, and he was working these long crazy hours, and she pulls some strings to basically get him tripped up. Granted, he had skeletons, I guess you could say. He had a couple little secrets that, right, it wasn't going to be in his best interest for work to know. And basically she dropped a dime on him, and he ended up being asked to resign, just in lieu of being fired. And it broke him so much, he went on this crazy bender and got really sick. And then, right, like, whose arms did he end up falling into? Right, this woman. So their friendship kind of goes on from there. And at one point, like, I guess she talked him into like a companion marriage. And I know, like, to say that somebody was talked into something, again, like, right, like, I told him he was stupid to fall for that, because, right, like, she knew all along that she was going to bide her time, and now she has all this legal power over him that, like, if it were a real companionship, she wouldn't pull those legal strings. But because there was an ulterior motive, she pulled out all the legal marriage kind of stops, in other words, to prevent him from ever being able to walk away from the marriage, without taking another hit, without having to, probably take a downgrade from his lifestyle, or, like, he has, I guess he has like a 401k or something that he like refused to cash until the right time, or however that works out, just doing a lot of little things to prevent him from leaving her, even though it was supposed to be some kind of companion business marriage. And more or less, like, the reason I highlight her as part of our Hall of Fame is because, like I said, she was willing, all in the name of love, she was willing to hex this person, like root this person, trying to hex his friends, literally breaking the car or the car keys so that he literally could not leave the house. Just harassing him, calling the police on him, getting him fired. Like, wow, and all out of love, all because you love this person so much that you are gonna, like, just force them to realize that you love them. So she felt justified because he was a player, but they weren't ever supposed to be in some kind of committed exclusive relationship. In fact, she had a boyfriend, but she went out and got a dangerous boyfriend in order to make her legal husband feel sorry for her. And also, it put him in a bad position, because if her boyfriend smacked her up, she could call the police and say her husband did it. And say, he found out I was having an affair, and now they're fighting, and they both hit me. Like, she was, unfortunately, that she was willing to go to those lengths where she would call the police and be willing to tell any sort of lie, however way she wanted, after, triggering this person or that person. So she would put herself in dangerous situations on purpose, to basically get my friend, her husband, you know, to rescue her or to force him to spend time with her or this kind of thing. And she was just willing, to me, it's like she was willing to do all this bizarre and really dangerous and ultimately evil stuff. You know, trying to get somebody arrested, or you know, threatening with power of attorney. She got him to sign all this stuff because he wasn't in the paperwork. So right, she acting like she's like so there for him, but really now it's giving her the legal and financial power over him, so that right, should he end up in a situation where, you know, right, like if he were to have a stroke, she's already got it all under control of where every little thing is going. So anyway, and then right, like she offered to take care of him financially. Again, he took the bait. I can't like distribute responsibility or excuse that, but you know, she offered, he took it, and now when she says jump, he says how high. And again, believe the reason she made it in our Hall of Fame is because there were no lengths she was not willing to go, both legally, you know, and willing to put a lot of people in danger, willing to let like hope for people to die, all kinds of crazy stuff, just out of obsession for being with this man that just wasn't in love with her. Like he had love for her, but he wasn't in love with her. And I'm honestly grateful to her in the sense that I got a chance to see like the way I told you with my guy that we now named Rooster, if I'm gonna keep bringing him up. If I had not made any efforts to self-awareness, or, and I'm not saying I have it all figured out, but if I hadn't made any efforts to say, okay, what can I change so that, like, you know, I can stop being unhappy in this regard, you know, and why, what is this thing that's happening between us? Like, if I hadn't made any efforts to break out of whatever was causing me to have like this kind of crazy relationship with someone, right, we might have ended up like that. Because he more or less, well, I don't know about the sexuality stuff, but he more or less, right, for sure, at least he's a player. And it, you know, if I had been so like the crazy that it was bringing out of me, you know, it helped give me a depth of understanding when some women do all this crazy stupid shit, in order to, right, like keep some man or teach him some lesson that ultimately makes, because neither one of you are going to leave. And it's like, you do all this out of love. This is love. Hexing somebody is love. Getting somebody fired is love. You know, lying and calling the police and causing all this drama, all out of love. Like, you, like this woman was basically saying, I'll stop making your life hell when you sit down next to me and grow old together, and we just watch TV and be in love, and you just do whatever I say, and that's it, you know. And I'm not knocking if you find that to be ideal, you know, but if you have to like threaten and do all this crazy stuff to people to make them love you, is that love? Is that really love though? You know, I understand wanting revenge, you know, if you do some crazy stuff back to a person and move on. I'm not saying, well, that's okay, but you know, if you feel like that's what you have to do. But as far as the situations where you're doing all this crazy stuff to all in an effort to force someone to realize like they're your husband and they need to love and spend time with you, and vice versa, if you have to force somebody to spend time with you, then it like, is that still, are you still doing that crazy shit out of love? Is it because you love them? I'm not sure. To me, no. Well, actually, I am sure that my opinion is no. But, you know, I know people find all sorts of ways to justify things. And, you know, maybe in their world, there's a reason for it. And who am I to say? You know, if your mission, if you feel like that's your mission, then I guess it's going to go however it's going to go until that's not your mission anymore. You're in the driver's seat, champ. So, anyway, it's Friday. I hope you have a great weekend. Those were my evil old ladies. What about you? Do you know an evil old lady? Are you a proud evil old lady? Well, I don't know. I don't know if I want to know. I don't know if I want to know you then. But do you know old ladies that never get suspected of anything when, like, behind the scenes they are really this diabolical genius? talk about it in the comments if you would. Otherwise, but beyond that, have a great day, have a great weekend. Namyo Harenge Kyo.